Yeah, well, for How I Do, we actually did that album a lot in New York. It was all done in New York. I'm from Philly. Santi White, who's known now as Santa Gold, is from Philly. We had Bose from Philly, but we went to New York. Santi was working at a record label at the time, and I would just go up there and we would, you know, write songs and sing songs and things like that. But I remember for that album, you know, we did a lot of the album. We had like half the album done, and I would walk up the street to the corner, meet the producer that lived around the corner from me. They put him in like a studio around the corner. So we would meet at the corner and go to the studio. And we didn't have any reference points for like How I Do. It was no like album that we could say, oh, it's like that. Our reference point was Stankonia or Aquemini, like Outkast stuff, you know? We decided, like I woke up one day and I just didn't feel good about it. And I was like, oh my God, no, I never heard any songs like this. So I said, you know what, we need to start. I basically complained so much that I convinced the producer that like, yeah, what are we doing? Why are we doing this? And he was like, we're scratching all that we did. We did like 6 songs. He's like, we're scratching it and we're starting from scratch. And we went in the studio that day to start from scratch. And the song that we did was Ice King that day. And then when we did Ice King and we played it against the other songs, we're like, this all works. What are we talking about? And we just kept on going. But there's times that you do music and we're crossing like new lines and doing like new styles that you don't hear, that you feel really in doubt. And you kind of want to give up and scrap it and not let anybody hear it. But sometimes that's like the breakthrough that you need. Like you need to doubt yourself sometimes to get better. It's not always just about having confidence. Having confidence it's sometimes having that day where you hate everything that you ever did, and that pushes you to do something completely different than you've done in the past. And then that's the thing that is the catalyst that makes it all work out later. Just kind of weird, but I don't know. I had one experience, like one of my favorite experiences in the studio wasn't me singing, it was me watching. You know, I went to the studio in LA and everyone was like, yo, Faith Evans is coming through to the studio. And I don't know, I just had like that like kind of starstruck moment where I was sitting there, you know, Faith's rolling a J, and it's like we're sitting there about to hang out, talk, and she's about to record. And I don't know if any of my stories are good, but they're mine and it was fun. You know, just like on someone else's session, you know, you can learn a lot. And I don't know, I think I learn the most from producers in the studio. You know, sometimes I'm amazed at how fast like some people can write songs, and but I'm more impressed with like the producer because they have the most anal job in the studio, and they have to sit there and like listen to every drum track and every drum sound, and you know, mixing is like a whole nother beast. But honestly, I think the most memorable though studio moment I've ever had was when I was in the studio recording a song called For Who You Are. And it's a real popular song in Chicago and in the Midwest and Steppers community. And Khalil from the Bush Babies, I called him up and I had like 3 chords and I asked him to put a Eric B and Rakim beat to it, and he did it. Then I gave it to Wawa Watson, who's like a legendary guitar player, you know, still alive doing his thing. And he was like, okay, I'm gonna get all my boys to do it. So when I rolled up to the studio and he was like, I'm gonna get a full band to do it, we did it at Sunset Studios, which is like a legendary studio in LA that Marvin Gaye performed and recorded at. I love Marvin Gaye. Wawa played guitar, and it was the first song I co-produced. He co-produced it with me. He played guitar. He pulled out. I showed up to the studio, and Ray Parker Jr. was there. Freddie Washington, who plays the bass for the Temptations, was there. James Gatson, who plays the drums for Bill Withers, you know that song Use Me Up. He was there on drums. Edwin Birdsong, who plays the vibraphone, who played with Roy Ayers, was there. Tay Euler, who plays guitar with the Mamas and the Papas, he was there. And Jim Gilstrap, who sang the first verse in You Are the Sunshine of My Life. You know, that guy that you're like, that's not sounding like Stevie, but it might be. He was singing background. So these guys were all there, and they produced this song. And it was just amazing because these were all the guys that like Marvin worked with and all these great people. And they were like, you know, you got a hit record. And I was like, really? And they're like, yeah, do you know how I know? And I'm like, yeah. I'm like, no, how do you know? They're like, listen to it. You know, they're like, that's all you gotta do, just listen to it. If it feel good, if it, you know, they're like, I've had over 150 Motown hits, I know. You know, so that was pretty like, oh, okay. And that song it's out, but it's not out, you know, it's not being promoted and all that kind of stuff, but it caught on, and it truly is that, you know. But it's interesting because it's, you know, that's like the last thing you do when you're trying to figure out if something is a hit record in the music industry, when you're making and you're the artist. You don't like listen to it, you know? And that's kind of just all you need to do. I was just telling somebody else that recently how I've only heard my music one time the way everybody else hears it, like it's in somebody else's song, you know? And I feel like God granted me like those 4 minutes of my life to hear the song 700 Miles that I did. And I heard it driving in the car with like one of my friends who's like this actor dude in LA, you know, we were driving up the coast, and he put on my music, and it was almost like I didn't recognize it. And I can't even explain it, except I've never heard any other song that I've ever recorded in that same way. Like I never heard it like I listened to Michael Jackson or listen to somebody else's song, because you always hear what you wanted to do, what you didn't do, what you should have did, you know, and you're always singing along parts that like you should have thought you wanted to add. But for that moment in time, it was like I was driving in this Aston Martin convertible with this dude in California, you know, and I heard 700 Miles like everybody else, and I'm like grateful for that till this point, you know. That was pretty cool. But that never happens, ever.